And welcome back to the CSS podcast. I'm your host, Dave. That gentleman there beside me is Charlie. Sam will be joining us in a little bit to talk about some the week that was and also our topic of the week. Uh, Before we get going, if you do like this show, if you do like the Cincinnati sports scene, please hit that like and subscribe button here. You can find us all on all the streaming platforms, your podcasting platforms, plus YouTube. And the best thing about this show is you don't have to search Peacock for it. You don't have to pay a subscription or anything like that. So we're coming to you live and for free. Hit that like and subscribe for us. Thank you. We appreciate you out there. So busy week that was. We got a lot to talk about here. So we're just going to go dive right in. Well, before we do that, Crawley, how was your week so far?
It was good, in spite of the weather. This true winter stuff is, I love to avoid it somehow. The only thing I'll say on the positive side is at least we're not more west. I mean, you go to, Iowa and Nebraska, and they're dealing with, even I guess up in the Northeast too. That's a lot worse. So in comparison to them, we're at least on the plus side of the 0 degree marker, which much of the country is not. So
right, but we're on the negative side of the snow. Would be nice to have that kind of snow that Buffalo's getting, so we could have another few days off.
Maybe, but we also wouldn't be able to function either. So.
Well, it's true. It would take a week to clear that. So,
right.
But hey, we got a shout out to Mr. P. Farr. I know he's watching today, so we want to say, hey, Phil. Looking forward to hearing in about an hour to get together. Can't wait. So let's go right into the week that was here. The Bearcats, they had two really good games in the Big 12. Lost to Texas 74-73 at home. That was a game that you attended, right, Crawley?
Yeah.
And then last night, another nail biter. They took the L 62-59. What are your takeaways from the Texas game and the Baylor game?
Well, they were very similar. I mean, really. I was at the Texas game and I watched all the Baylor game last night. My first word comes to mind is disappointing. But there's also hope, I guess, which I don't like that word actually in sports because you shouldn't live off of hope. That's why my problem with the Reds is everything's about hope. So that's probably a bad word. I shouldn't use that word, but I'll start with the disappointing side. I mean, they had a chance to win. I mean, you go to Baylor and you got a chance to win in the, coming down the last shot. And, to me, disappointing also, you compare what Texas did at the end of the game versus what UC did at the end of the game last night. And it's, why does Texas get an open shot? They get an open 2-point shot. That's exactly what UC needed. Was
Travel.
that well? But after, yes, but still,
yeah, right.
UC, I don't know. I just didn't their execution, which a lot of time, most time it's basketball, right? It's execution,
right?
Wasn't good in the last minute. I don't blame the Lukosius 3-pointer at the end of the Baylor game. I mean, he had an open look. He just didn't knock it down. He wasn't knocking it down all game. And the thing at the very end, I don't know what Day Thomas was doing from shooting from like 30 feet when there were 6-7 seconds left. That was an awful shot. But so I don't know. They have these. I mean, their energy's great. They're working hard. Defense has been a lot better than expected. I think they're just going to be going to be frustrating all season. They don't have a go-to guy. They don't have one guy. Xavier has their one guy. Texas obviously had their one guy. Baylor's is their freshman. I mean, they don't have that guy yet. They have two guys that are this. Last night it was Dan Skillings, who hasn't really had a good streak. He's been on kind of a downturn the last couple of weeks. Skillings had a good game. He pretty much carried the offense, whereas against Texas it was Lukosius and Jamil Reynolds. Reynolds carried the team. So they got to get – so right now I think the inconsistency is killing them. They don't know going from – against these good teams, they don't know going from game to game who's going to be there. And Lukosius was not good yesterday. Couldn't make a shot. they still miss way too many layups. Oh my God, they have so many. I mean, even Skillings with 17 seconds left last night missed a layup, fell off the rim. People keep forgetting about that, but if he makes that layup, they go up by 1, and then you don't have all those shots in the last 15 seconds. So in Texas, they blew, I don't know how many layups it was, like 15 or something. It was some ridiculous number that they did not execute at the end, in the final. Let's lay the ball up. I mean, remember the layup drills when you're in first grade and stuff. So it's like, I don't know. So I think this is how the season's going to be. I think they're talented enough. I think they can compete with anybody. There's no Big 12 team. I mean, Baylor was probably right now considered the best and playing the best of the Big 12 teams. I mean, UC hung right in there with them at Baylor. So I think they'll compete. I think they could win every game, but they could maybe lose every game too. And I think just the inconsistency is going to drive me a little crazy. They're fun. I mean, it's back to Big East basketball, UC Big East and back in those days and stuff. And I'm, like these Power 5 conferences that, every game is crazy and close and you never know who's going to win kind of thing. So, but they're definitely going to be frustrating because they just don't have that go-to guy, and they just, you just never know game to game who's going to be there. Who's going to be there for you?
That can be a positive or negative as well. Just because, if you can have different guys step up when your go-to guy, even though we don't have one, isn't hitting, that's a bona fide plus for a basketball team and for a basketball coach. The thing that, I took away from the game, I mean, I did not watch the Texas game until the last 24 seconds. I just happened to be scrolling through, and I was like, oh yeah, it's on. And it happened to be on my phone. So I just watched the last 24 seconds, the missed free throws there, which, you hit those, it's a different ball game. And then, the non-call travel, but you still have to play defense. Right. And, the thing that, the inconsistency is there, but the thing that I am probably concerned moving forward is Aziz's back issue, right? Especially playing the teams that are coming up on the schedule here, the next 3 games. I know Reynolds is stepping up, but you got your 7-footer who that missed 2 games now. It's that could be concerning for the Bearcats moving forward.
And he didn't play great against Texas. Reynolds definitely was, and got a lot more playing time because he didn't play great against Texas either.
Right, and part of that was he was banged up early in that game.
Dude gave him like a forearm shiver right to the butt. That he's going to be a target. That's just the way it is. You're going to be a target that is back. So I don't know. Locken didn't have a great game yesterday. He had a much better game against Texas, which is, again, another thing that, even for someone like that who's been in the program for 3 years, you expect more consistency out of him.
Well, and that's what Drew, Scott Drew, the coach of Baylor, even said in his presser that they were keen on Locken. They were, because he had a really good game against Texas, and they wanted to try to take him away. And and this is where, you hope other people can step up, and Skillings did, but it just wasn't enough in the Baylor game. So,
and Skillings is you get a 1 out of every 5-6 games like that. That's the problem. And I'd love for him to move forward, and he doesn't be. He was really good yesterday,
right?
But even if he's just
14 points a game,
90% of that, 80% of that, you're okay. But he has games where he just is like he's never played basketball before. Mm-hmm. Texas, he was just okay. So, but that's where the problem. For me, they got to, instead of having these extremes of 2 players here, 1 player here, it's got to level out at a higher, at a much more stable, higher level than that. I still think there was a large part of the fan base that was worried that UC could even compete with these teams. Mm-hmm. Especially losing to Xavier the way they did and Dayton the way they did. And these teams are not I mean, Dayton's not better than these teams. Like, what the heck was that? So that was just hopefully just a weird, outlier kind of thing, but more just a bad matchup. Sometimes in basketball you get just bad matchups with certain teams and stuff. So I'm at least, even though I'm very disappointed. I mean, I walked out of the Texas game just frustrated as crap. Like, I thought about it for a while, just like, oh my God, how big of a win that would have been.
Mm-hmm.
You go up you're 2-0 in the Big 12 already this season. You got to win. You got these are all top 25 teams, and Texas probably ain't going to be a top 25 team. They lost to West Virginia, who potentially is considered the worst team in the Big 12 this year, and Texas goes there and loses. So I think it's going to continue to be a crazy season. I just hope UC doesn't get buried in this first part of the schedule, because it doesn't let up for the next 3-4 games. They got Kansas, Oklahoma, TCU coming up. They don't get the West Virginias, Oklahoma States until later. So I think UCF maybe is after that Oklahoma game or something. But they got to get some. They got to win their home games. You have to win their home games in the Big 12, or you're just going to get buried, because you're not going to win hardly any of them road games. You just aren't.
No. Well, I'd like to welcome our third member of the podcast, Sam, to the show.
Yep.
How you doing today, son?
No, I'm tired. I'm all right though.
Yeah. All right. We're just wrapping up the UC portion of the week that was. Any thoughts on the two games?
No, I didn't have a chance to watch either of the games, so I didn't. I mean, they were close, competitive from what I saw. So Carly said, I guess that's good, because those were the teams, the Texases and Baylor's, who have been really good in the Big 12. So that's kind of the measuring stick, them in Kansas. So at least be able to hold your own against them is promising for, I guess, some of the mid-tier teams. Hopefully you can knock them off. So.
Yeah, and I like the word promising there, because they do show a lot of promise, and it's it's going to take them a little bit of time to feel their way through the Big 12. So hopefully it's on the upward swing, and they'll be able to ride that wave and get a couple of victories. But like Charlie said, here coming up next, they got TCU and Oklahoma.
And TCU just knocked off. Who'd they beat? They just beat somebody. Houston. They just beat Houston.
Yeah, Houston. And then after that, they go to Kansas. So Rock Chalk Jayhawk. I mean, these 3 games here. This is the gauntlet. This 5. I mean, that is a gauntlet of a schedule.
I wonder when the last time UC, if they've ever in their history, played this many ranked teams in a row.
Probably when they were in the Big East, like the late 2000s.
I mean, this is what, 6 in a row?
That's true.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That is a lot, because the Big
TCU is going to be ranked.
Yeah, TCU will be ranked. Yeah, this week. Yeah. So,
I mean, that's a
gauntlet. A gauntlet. So, in a row. I mean, yeah, in a row.
That's what I'm saying. Consecutive. Yeah. I'm not saying in the whole. That would be a good schedule for the whole season. I'm talking about in literally over 3 weeks. You're playing 6 ranked teams.
Welcome to the Big 12, UC. So, welcome to the Big 12. All right. Yeah. Moving from the Big 12 to the Big East, Xavier. They had UConn. They lost at home 80-75. And then yesterday they went to Providence and whooped up on the Friars 85-65. A couple of things from the UConn game. They dug a hole a little early. They came storming back, but they just couldn't. They just didn't have an answer for UConn down the stretch. One of the things that, I was thinking about is that Miller needs to get this team the new reality of this, the college basketball, the portal, where he's got all these guys, new guys coming in. You got to get them to gel a lot sooner. We talk about this with the Bengals, right? In preseason, they need to play a little bit just to get in the rhythm and stuff. And these guys are coming from different programs, different years of experience, and they don't know the Xavier way, and Miller has to get them, playing. And he used an analogy yesterday after they beat Providence, is that, they've been knocking on the door. And he said, finally, we we busted through the door in the Providence game, and he hopes that can just catapult them into playing better, more consistent basketball here in the Big East, because they're gonna need to ride that for a little bit. I see a lot of parallels between UC and Xavier right now. Just the up and down roller coaster. They look good one game, or heck, it's even in the games, right? They'll play good for the first 5 minutes, and then they're bad for the next 8, and then they come out of halftime and score. They go on a 10-1 run, something like that, and then they let UConn or Providence try to get a run in. They just need to be more consistent, and I think that's what these early games in November, December. You try to find your team, try to find your lineup, your rotation. And with Xavier, they just didn't know, because they had 10 new guys, and it's like, all right, who do we play? But Claude and Green had great shooting performances. Claude in the first half and Green in the second. And that helps. Sophomore, freshmen. So, moving forward, I think they have Butler with Thad Matta coming back to town, and then Georgetown. It doesn't get easier for Xavier in the Big East, but those are two teams that they should beat, based on history and things. But Butler's always tough. They give Xavier a hard time. I don't know. So, you guys got any thoughts on the Musketeers before we move on?
Yeah, that Providence win was, you're at Providence. That's a good win. I know they're a little bit of rebuild as well, because they lost their coach. Then their coach go to Georgetown.
Yeah, he went to Georgetown.
The guy ends at Georgetown. So
yeah,
seems so weird. But so I'm sure they took a little step back, but I think they came in with a pretty good record. I know they have a pretty good record, Providence. So that's a good win. Any win on the road in any of these conferences is a good win. I just look at the Big 12 so far. Kansas loses at UCF. West Virginia now,
Houston.
They go to West Virginia and lose. So any win on the road in these better conferences is a plus. You can't complain.
Right. Yep.
So
that is true. All right. Moving on. I want to talk a little bit about our thoughts here on the NFL, college football coaching legends. Saban. It just went boom, 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 right? Pete Carroll was first Vrabel, but I wouldn't put him in the legends. But it was Vrabel, and then Pete Carroll, and then Nick Saban that same day around 4:00, and then the next day, Bill Belichick and the Patriots part ways. I think this could be a take. There could be some people that disagree with this, but I think that Bill Belichick and Saban, respectively, are the greatest coaches in their sports. All right, college football and NFL. Now, some people may say that, well, Belichick hasn't done anything without Brady. But it is what it is. If you look at Belichick, he'd probably coached the greatest quarterback of all time, or the great, and then the greatest defensive player of all time, and Lawrence Taylor, when he was with the Giants there for a while. So, thoughts on Saban, Carroll, and Belichick leaving the game for right now?
Yeah, we had kind of heard some stuff coming out of New England that it was likely that Belichick was going to step away. Pete Carroll came as a little bit of a surprise to me, just because everything, he was very successful with the Seahawks. I guess they didn't end up making the playoffs again this year, but I still thought that they were better than their record was still better than what the team was. I didn't think that team was very good. Same with last year. I didn't think that team was very good. I thought they overperformed both years. So I was a little surprised on that. And then I was really surprised by Nick Saban kind of leaving. I kind of figured it would be one of those you knew a year in advance kind of deals, like, hey, this is going to be my last year. But it wasn't like that. So, I mean, that one was probably the most surprising to me. And then some of the hires, the Patriots going with their linebacker coach, Mayo, was a bit of a surprise to me, especially considering Vrabel was right there.
Mm-hmm.
And, that kind of just seemed like the move there. And then Bama going with DeBoer, who seems like he's going to be a good coach, but I just figured they'd go big name hunting and get the biggest name that they could. So, I mean, I guess we'll see. So,
yeah, I think, I obviously I have no inside information or anything like that on the Nick Saban hire. But I think that they had their feelers out. I think Nick, he wasn't 100% sure that he was going to retire, but I think he did, just out of the characteristics that, you listen to Nick and his values and stuff. I don't think he would have left their AD high and dry, saying like a surprise. Like he probably said, hey, you might need to have, your list ready. And that could have been at the beginning of this year, could have been midway through the year. Just have a list ready, because I'm not 100% sure. And, I think their number one choice was either Dan Lanning or D'Amico Ryans. And D'Amico, a grad, played there, but he might be the coach of the year in the NFL. He's set right there. He's not coming back to college. So, and I think when Dan Lanning said he wasn't interested, then you see all these other guys like Kiffin and Mike Norvell saying they're staying put. Alabama's not going to say, yeah, DeBoer was our fifth choice, but he probably was one of the guys they were looking at. But they could have got, I think, Lanning, and that's who I think they would have got, who they wanted, because of the SEC ties, working under Nick, working under Kirby, those type of things. But DeBoer brings a winning pedigree with him as well. So if he can keep some of the players, that's going to be his first task. He's got to win over the players and win over the boosters, and then I think everything will be okay for them.
Yeah, they're Alabama. It better be okay for him. They're not going to give him he's not going to have a long leash to
he's not.
to make it okay.
No.
So, I would say, what I've been listening to with some other podcasts, it sounds like Saban's was involved in the hire, was involved in who they went after. He's even kind of keeping an advisory role. They don't know what's going to actually look like, but he's going to be involved in. Mm-hmm. And I even said to you, Dave, when we were just texting back and forth, whatever, and you started throwing out, who were the
Lanning
two?
And...
No, not Lanning. No, the Kiffin.
Oh yeah,
Kiffin and Sark. Those two guys are weasels. Saban holds. All college coaches are kind of weaselly, but Saban, I think, just his level. He's not seeing that same light as those guys. Same thing with Dabo. Dabo's a weasel also, and I think Saban is kind of above that. I'm sure he's not about not against cutting corners and doing things he got to do. But I don't think he's great on the NIL. I don't think he's great on the that sort of stuff. Their operation is not nearly as advanced as a lot of other big schools on that, because he didn't need to. It's Saban, it's Alabama. Not the hardest place to recruit to. So it did not surprise me they did not go after Kiffin, Sark, and Dabo, because I don't see them. I see them as just personality-wise and just the way they operate is not Saban-like. He was a weasel when he left the Dolphins, but that's a totally different thing. So I don't know. So that did not surprise me at all, because I think this DeBoer guy is much more Saban-like in terms of his approach, just his personalities. Just not that kind of smarmy. I will stab you in the back anytime I need to do what I need to do. And I think those other three guys that were definitely rumored much more than DeBoer was. I think that's a big part of it. The fact that Saban was involved in it too. I think he I think he's looking for somebody more. I'll just say Saban-like.
That is true. Yep. All right. Well, good luck to the Pates and the Tide. And then we didn't even mention Pete Carroll.
Well, the thing I saw on X or Twitter, whatever the hell it's called now, today was Washington hiring Pete Carroll.
Yeah, I saw that. Yesterday, I think it was. They should bring him back, or one of the talk shows said maybe USC should bring him back as a defensive coordinator under because that's where he made his. That's what he was, the defensive coordinator.
Right. Yeah, he's a defensive guy.
Right, and that's kind of funny because all three of them were defensive guys. Right.
Yep. So that's how they're part of the old guard.
Yeah. Exactly, and considered, two of them considered the greatest coaches of all time. So, one of our colleagues said, "Bring Saban, fire Zach, make Belichick the head coach, Saban his defensive coordinator, bring Pete Carroll in for special teams, and we're ready to go, man. We got geriatric central.
Yeah,
here.
Mike Brown be all over that.
He would be." they could share supper together.
What's happening?
I don't know, man. It's like all of a sudden the producer got on here. Like,
I know.
But there's no producer. What's going on there, Ben? All right. You didn't touch anything. No. Did I hit something? I don't know. All right. We're going to move on to
on the live streams.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. So we're moving on to the Reds Bengals. Last week we were going to ask this question, but we ran a little long, and so we're going to ask it this week. Crawley brought this up to us, and he's like, are the Reds or Bengals in a better position moving forward? And what I wanted to do was add your reasonings. Why do you think, the Reds are better or the Bengals are better moving forward? Who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
I'll let you guys. I threw the question out.
Okay.
So.
All right.
I'll say the Bengals for really one reason only, is they got their long-term answer at quarterback. They know who the franchise is going to be built around for the next, what he signed a 5-year deal or something. I don't even remember now. But for the next we'll call it 7-10 years or whatever.
5-year extension, I guess it was.
Yeah. So for the next 7 years, 6 years now, it's going to be Joe Burrow, and Zach Taylor's going to be the head coach. The Reds have a bunch of promising guys, but nobody is the guy yet. You don't know who is the guy. We think Hunter Green's going to be promising and develop into a number one, but he's not a number one yet. Same with Nick Lodolo. And I'm not sold on David Bell. I'm not sold that the Reds are even sold on David Bell. So I don't know if he's going to be there long term. So that's why I go with the Bengals.
All right. Those are all good reasonings. I went the opposite. I went the Reds. And a couple of reasons. One, the Reds have more controllable young core. I think they're playing in an easier division right now than what the Bengals are playing in. Plus the Reds, baseball players have a little longer lifespan in baseball. And if they can sign a couple of these guys, longer terms, I wouldn't say major, but 6-7 years, you'll get a Ellie, you'll get the Martes, you'll get the Hunter Greens, Lodolos for the 6 years. Whereas, we had our core for the Bengals had the core, and T's pretty much gone. Reader's probably gone. All these guys will probably be gone. Now, the other thing too is that the NFL is, in their socialist views, it's better suited for parity. The schedules, the salary caps, those type of things. So, that could be a positive side for the Bengals because they will have the last place schedule. But everything goes back to the middle. Everybody's supposed to be in the middle, and it still makes it difficult. Where if you can ride that wave for 3 or 4 years with the Reds, you might be able to catch that wave and go forward. So that's where I think the Reds are in a better situation moving forward. I think they'll have. I mean, they're both cheap, and they both the Bengals are under cap, the salary cap, and the Reds don't spend. So, I mean, right now, I saw a thing on Twitter that the Reds spent 108, 109 million now, and pretty much that's exactly. I mean, they were like 23rd last year, or 24th last year in salary, something like that, and they're exactly 24th right now, and how much they spent. So they really haven't bumped up any as far as spending, but it's just kind of nice that they actually spent something this year. All right, Carly, let's hear it.
Yeah, I mean, just from a free agent standpoint, they spent more than I expected them to. I just don't know if their spending was
the right kind of spending.
Was the right spending, correct? That's that's TBD'd
Yeah.
a lot. I would not have been against them spending it all on 2 really good players versus 5. Who knows? Average to maybe above average. We'll see. But anyway, I would say I kind of took a mid approach actually between the two of you, because I kind of looked at it in my own question about moving forward for how long. I think the Bengals, because of what Sam said, for the next, say, 2 years, are still in a better position because of Joe Burrow. And they, still have, they'll have Jamar Chase. I think T. Higgins is coming back. I think they're going to franchise him. So they're going to have the core. But as the next 2 years play out, this core is going to go bye-bye. Hendrickson, is he going to be back after 2 years? Or after whatever this little extension that he signed? I mean, I Hubbard. I mean, some of the these guys. So I would say after to maybe the 2-year mark, it might be the Reds, just because how many high level players, potential players they have now. Sam is right. None of them. I mean, not that they haven't done anything, but they've done very little in the grand scheme of things for a winning baseball team. World Series competing baseball team. We know the Bengals core has made the Super Bowl. I just don't. I'm very concerned that after these next 2 years, it may be Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and a bunch of other guys. And I don't trust the Bengals front office to be very good in replacing those other guys. Their free agency hits are very minimal. They don't do whether it's spending or just not bringing in the very right players. I mean, Hendrickson. Everybody always wants to point to Anderson. Okay, you got one good hit in free agency. Von Bell was good, DJ Reader, but they've also brought in a lot of guys who haven't done much.
Herb Smith.
Who?
Herb Smith.
Right, Herb Smith. Exactly. That's how they solved the tight end issue. I mean, their best tight end this year was a guy who was on the practice squad, undrafted practice squad guy. So I don't know. I'll be in the middle. I'm going to say short term. Bengals, I have more faith because of one person, and it's not Zach Taylor or Mike Brown and his cronies. But the Reds, I think potentially, because of the way the system works, if you get a 75% hit with the rookie / second year players they got, they're going to have a freaking good team over the next 5 years. So,
well, and then speaking of the good team, Vegas right now. It had at the beginning when the over-unders came out, it was 80.5. People were hitting the overs.
I saw it bumped, didn't it? 81.
81.5 now.
81
So
and a half,
it'll probably keep bumping a little bit, but yeah, it was juiced to the over, and
well, that was a pretty big quick move. So there must have been a lot of money coming in.
A lot of money coming
above
in.
80.5.
Yeah,
so
yeah, exactly. So well, hopefully they'll. I think 86, 87 wins the division. We'll see. I don't think anybody really improved themselves. I mean, they have the Cardinals to win the division, but I mean, they got Sonny Gray, and then they got a bunch of old guys coming in.
Well, even he's old.
Yeah, and Gray is old too. But so Lance Lynn, I don't think he's anything.
I'm not worried about
that. Yeah, and
I mean, Sonny Gray's legitimate. I mean,
yes,
that's the one red. That's the one miss that the Reds had.
Right.
At this
Yep.
point. So.
Yep. So
I would rather have Sonny Gray and not Martinez and Pagan and spend 13 on Martinez, 8 on Pagan, and 16 on Montas?
16 on Montas.
Yeah, I would take all 3 of those and say go back to where you came from and take Sonny Gray.
Yep. But we got a hometown boy coming in. Not Bruce Sutter, but Brent Sutter.
I like that pickup. That was only $2.5 million. I mean, he pitched well for the Rockies last year.
Yeah,
I think that's a good pickup. Real good.
I don't know if it was 2.5 or 3.
I think it's 2.5.
I think the option for 3.
Yeah,
the options for 3.
Yeah. It was great pickup. In 100 or 30 some games in Coors Field, didn't give up a home run and 114 at bats.
I think 32. 32 appearances.
32 games. And then, he's got a 4-0 record here in Great America Small Park. And, I would say opponents, but it was the Reds batting against him. It was like a 1 something, so hopefully, he can work that magic so that we can say opponents from here on out, not Reds. But so I think that was a great pickup, and he's excited to be here, obviously. And then I guess the last thing about the Reds, we'll talk about Jonathan India. He's the only one that did not reach, they did not agree to for arbitration.
That didn't surprise me.
Yeah. So, he wanted 4. The Reds said 3.2, and, there's no negotiation. Scott Boris's client and the Reds, they basically say, here's our offers. If it's not close, we're going to arbitration, and that's what's happening. And, listening to Sean Casey tell his story when he was in arbitration, his first time going through it, it's the business side, but they attack you, right? I mean, they attack you to say, this is why you only deserve 3.2 because your WAR's this, your fielding percentage is here, defensive runs saves is horrible. You only batted this, blah 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 blah. But we love you. You're the leader of the team. We want you to be here, but I think it could get ugly. I don't know if India is ready for that. Hopefully he is, but we'll see.
Well, the Reds are probably going to come to it and say $4 million for a backup player.
Yeah.
I mean, he doesn't even have a starting job right now.
Right.
If he's got a starting job, that's a problem to me. I mean, I don't want him starting opening day.
No, not unless it's like
it's DH. That's it.
DH or right field if it's a left-handed.
Well, I can see Candelario starting at first and CS being the DH.
Right. Yep.
So.
Yeah. So we'll see. It'll play out, and there is, Ricky Karcher, number 74. We got 74 days till spring training. So there you go. There's your Reds tidbit for you.
X-Red, remember. X-Red.
Yeah, X-Red. Yes. All right, last thing we'll talk about on the week that was is FC Cincy. A couple of things that happened. The Brandon Vasquez being transferred to CF Monterrey, and then Budapenza blackmail, sex tapes, whatever else.
Tapes. Yeah.
So, the Gabonese.
I'm not even touching that. I don't even know what to even talk about with that.
They don't mess around there. So, he did not leak it. Apparently, his phone got stolen, and somebody leaked it and was blackmailing him. And he can go to jail because it's his property or something. I don't know. So FC Cincy his lawyers are all working with that. And then there's the other piece of the pie is if it was in a different country that has strict laws against that, he could be facing charges there as well. So yeah, that's a good pickup there, FC Cincinnati. But
he's our number one striker.
now, yeah, striker more than one way. So let's go ahead and talk about the Vasquez move. I think it. I mean, I don't follow soccer like you two do, but I always thought he wanted to go to Italy or somewhere over in Europe.
It's always Europe. That's all we ever heard.
Yeah, and now it's Mexico. I mean,
yeah, I mean, I really don't understand it from his point of view. I mean, other than he's probably getting paid more to go play in Mexico than he would have in Europe, because he's 24, 25, never played in Europe, so he wasn't going to get, some exorbitant salary. He's probably going to make less in Europe than he would have, and just staying at FC Cincy. But I'm surprised that FC Cincy didn't make him a designated player and buy down somebody else or transfer out somebody else and then just pay him himself. So, yeah, I mean, the move soccer-wise makes absolutely no sense to me, especially if he had any ambitions of playing more regularly with the national team. That just went completely out the window. So, I mean, good for him for getting his money and making a move, but to me, it just doesn't make sense at all. And I'm wondering, who his agent is, how much the agent played into this kind of that whole deal, because it's just not adding up to me on why he would make that move.
Yeah, I don't know the answer either. I don't know. Yeah, what the upside is other than the money in terms of that. So
weather,
because he's been talking for several years. It hasn't not been a secret that he wants to go to Europe for the soccer part of it. Just making yourself as good of a player as you potentially can. You got to do that in Europe. So I mean, Monterrey is a good Mexican club, and they do say that the top Mexican clubs are typically better than the top U.S. clubs, but the whole league is no better overall, the MX league. So yeah, I don't have the answer unless it literally just came down to money. It's not like he's making $20 million either. I don't know what his salary was here, this past year. So I mean, Mexico he's making 8.5. So, but it is what it is. I mean, Barreal was also been rumored to be going to Europe, and last thing I heard just the other day was they're not finding any place for him to go to. So hopefully that's good news for FC Cincy for him to stay, because he's without Vasquez and with Ben's situation, at least their midfield would stay intact if Barreal comes back, or they're attacking midfielders. So
yep. All right, we're going to move on.
They did. By the way, they did pick up a striker.
Yeah,
they did pick up a replacement, Corey Baird,
yes.
who was with Atlanta.
Atlanta.
I think Atlanta.
It was Atlanta.
Scored 14 goals last year, maybe. Mm-hmm. I think he actually scored more goals in the league, like regular season MLS, than Vasquez did. Vasquez scored more, I think, overall with all the playoffs and all those tournament things.
The cups,
the cup stuff. So I don't think he's considered nearly the talent that Vasquez is. But if he can just be workmanlike and just play within his means and if he scores 14 goals next season, I'll be happy with that. So
yeah,
that'd be good.
I mean, he's an older player too. He's an MLS lifer. So I mean, you're not gonna have to worry about him potentially trying to move on. As long as he's playing well, he'll be on the team. So.
Yep, and it. I mean, they start here
end of February.
Yep. End of February. I mean, they've got some open up.
I think they start their preseason stuff at the end of the month.
Yeah, January 26th.
Like next week. Yeah.
Yeah, 26, Austin. So yeah.
Well, that's their preseason game, whatever.
Right, preseason.
But they might even go down this upcoming week. Actually, head to Florida
just to start practicing. Yeah, because it's cold here. That'd be
Right. Yeah.
So all right, let's move on to our trivia here. Those of you that are out there listening, you can always chime in on Instagram or Twitter at Cincy Sports Scene. You can just send us a direct message there if you think you know the answer. Sam had last week's question. We did get all of them, but it took us a while. You want to just go ahead and repeat that? You don't have to give the answers or.
Yeah, we just did name all of the there have been 15 teams that made the 4-team college football playoff, the 4-team iteration of it. So we just named all 15 and we eventually got there.
So if you think you want to do that, go ahead and throw it in the chat, put it on Instagram or Twitter at Cincy Sports Scene. Crawley has this week's question. If you know the answer to this one, we will give you a shout out here, maybe even bring you on live one time to give us the answer. So here we go.
So in honor of what we now care about moving forward with the Bengals, which is the draft, and that's the now everything about draft talk. So this question concerns that, and it's a two-parter, as I'm good at. I'm good at multi-part kind of questions here, and I'm very confident the two of you would get the first part pretty quickly, very quickly, as a matter of fact. That's why there's a part two. Okay. That one's going to challenge you a little bit more. So part one is simply which college have the Bengals drafted the most first round picks from in the Bengals history? Which college have they drafted the most first round picks from?
I feel like it's Michigan. I feel like they've got a lot of Michigan first rounders.
I'm going to say Alabama. I mean, they had Dre, Jonah,
Andre Smith.
Yeah.
I think he was a first rounder.
I'm going to say Bama. Probably Ohio State, but, because, Billy Price.
That's right.
Archie Griffin.
I didn't say the best. I didn't say the best first round picks from.
LSU's got 3 too with Burrow, Chase, and Whitworth. Is there anybody else?
Yeah. Georgia with Pollock. And Joan. No, yeah. AJ Green. So
AJ Green was from Georgia. Yeah.
That's a good question. USC with Munoz and Carson Palmer. I want to say Bama just because.
I'm going to say Michigan.
Do you want me to give you the answer, or am I holding this off?
I guess we're both wrong, right?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, do you want me to give you the answer and then give you part two?
No, give us.
Or do you want me to hold off?
Yeah, hold off. Give us.
Well, I'll tell you part two, because I can say part two without giving you the answer for part one. This part two was name the draft picks from that school.
Yeah.
So whichever school it was. Now I will say this: it's 5. 5 is the number of picks from this one school in the first.
So that's 68, right?
Yeah. I mean, I went back to the 67. 67 was the first official draft. NFL merger draft.
Okay.
Because the NFL and the AFL came together and drafted together starting in 67. So.
Yeah, but the Bengals didn't start till 68.
True.
Right?
True. Yes. So, I went back to the beginning of the.
Okay.
So all the way back to whoever their first pick was.
Illinois with Bob Johnson, right?
Yeah, Bob Johnson, right? Yeah.
Bob Johnson.
I'm looking at 68 right here, and Bob Johnson, and he was from Tennessee, actually.
Tennessee, that's right, Tennessee.
So I can save you the, and then you can finish off part of it, or I can tell you now and we just move forward with it, whatever you think, Dave.
Let's what time is it? We got 50 minutes. We're at 50 minutes here. Let's so tell us if one of Sam and I was correct.
One of you is correct.
One of us is correct. All right, now tell us which one.
You don't want to keep that mystery, do you? Well, then you can start working on part 2 if
That's
I tell
right,
you.
exactly.
If I can tell you this.
Yeah,
So.
that's right.
Well, you might as well just, if I'm telling you that, then you might as well
Yeah.
just start naming the part. Okay.
Yeah.
It's Alabama. Alabama has
Okay.
5 guys have been drafted. So now
Okay,
part
so-
2 is you got to name them now.
All right, so it was Drake Kirkpatrick, right? You said Andre Smith.
Mm-hmm.
Andre Smith,
and then
Jonah Williams.
Jonah Williams.
Yep.
That's 3. Wasn't there like Alfred Williams? I don't know if he was from Alabama or not, but there was
He was Colorado, I believe.
Colorado. That's right. We're going back. What was the earliest Alabama?
85.
85?
Yep.
Yeah, I wouldn't know that one.
Wow. It's 85. Let's see.
Yep. The Bengals actually had 2 first-round picks in 85. And this was their second of their 2.
Second. Oh, okay.
First one was Eddie Brown.
Downtown Eddie Brown. And
Yep.
then the second one was
He's a linebacker.
that's
I don't really remember this guy. I do remember his name, but I would have never come up with this because I don't think he did much for the Bengals. The other guy, the other guy was much better.
yeah.
Like he did some stuff for the Bengals.
What year was that?
93. Not a great player, but decent.
But Delta. No, they didn't draft Delta O'Neal. Punt returner.
No.
No.
No. This guy was the 5th pick.
5th overall pick. Wow. In 93.
Yep.
Well, we'll hold that
Okay.
for our crew out there.
hold
So
that.
if you think guys know who the other 2 picks, and don't look, you're not allowed to get Google or anything out there. So just if you think send it to us. Drop it in the chat, or you can DM us at Cincy Sports Scene on Twitter or Instagram. All right.
Now, hold on before we move on. So I got a fun fact question, not a question, but a fun fact in my little research here. So in 1969, the 69 draft, in the first round, and there were 26. I don't know if there were 26 teams or there was 26 picks in the first round. There were 3 local, and I'm not asking you to name these people, but there were 3 local college players drafted in the first round.
Local is from like
Cincinnati area.
From Cincinnati area. Local.
Yeah.
Not like kids that were from Cincinnati and played somewhere else and got drafted.
No, Cincinnati area colleges drafted in the first round. And
well,
I saw
Greg Cook, right?
Greg Cook, yep,
Yeah,
that was one
Greg
of them.
Cook is one.
And to throw you off, he was the only UC of
Probably
the 3.
Xavier,
the only there you go. Xavier had a guy drafted in the first round.
Yeah, Xavier. It was like Bob Stack, right? No,
no. John Shinners.
Shinners.
He was a guard drafted by the Saints from Xavier.
Sounds like a guard.
And then a guy, and then he was the 17th pick, and then the 18th pick was another guy from the local area from what school?
Thomas More. No,
not Thomas More.
well,
I can't believe you would go to Thomas More. Think about the other team that would be most likely to have a draft
Miami.
pick.
Duh,
Yeah. Yeah, Miami had the 18th pick.
Well,
his name was again, never heard of this guy.
The
The Chargers drafted Bob Babbage,
the
linebacker from Miami.
All right.
I just thought that was cool.
That is cool.
That Xavier had a draft pick in 1969.
Xavier was tough, man.
In the first round, UC and Miami and Xavier.
And they're talking about
three of the top 18 picks in the 69 draft.
Maybe bringing football back. So we might have another, in a couple years, have another team to talk about in the week that was.
Yep. There you
All
go.
right.
Move on.
We're moving on now to our topic of the week. And our topic of the week, we were just talking about, the Bengals season and how it ended. So we wanted to go back through the course of Cincinnati sports teams and look at what we thought were the 5 best sports seasons on any Cincinnati area team. And I don't know how my partners did it, but I just went back since I was alive because I didn't want to go in the 40s and things like that because
I didn't know we were doing that.
Well, no, you do whatever you wanted to do. I mean, I didn't put criteria on it, but I just put my own criteria.
Okay.
So we'll just go around and you can say a little spiel if you want to. If not, we'll just go 5-1. Like this is the 5th best sports season of all time. 4th, 3, 2, 1. If you want to start, Crawley, with your 5th, and Sam, then I'll go, and then we'll just go in that order.
Well, and then you want to do that. Then Sam goes first the next time around. That
Yeah.
Okay.
Sam would do the number 3 or the number 4, and then do 3, and then 2 and 1. So yeah.
So this is our 5th. So I put 5th.
Yep.
Maybe because of recency bias, or only really because of recency bias, I would say. I put FC Cincinnati.
Okay.
This current year, 2023, win the Supporters Shield. Had I should have looked it up, 5th, 5th, something most points in MLS history, regular season. Unfortunately, did not make the championship game, but did make it to the conference finals. So I put them as the 5th best season.
Good one. Sam?
Yeah, I did since my lifetime, like you said, and there's been literally nothing. So, my
right. That's why you shouldn't just use your lifetime. That wouldn't. Yeah, that barely works for me even.
I did it that way. I just because I thought it was more fun for my do my lifetime. So my 5th best team is the 2012 Reds that lost in 5 to the Giants.
That's a good one. I went the 5th best team, the 2021 Bearcat football team, 13-1, lost to Bama in the CFE. All right, son, go number 4.
So yeah, my number 4 was this year's FCC team. So Crawley already mentioned their accolades, so they're at number 4 for me.
My number 4 team was the 81 Bengals team that went 12-4, lost to the Niners in the Super Bowl. They ushered in their new uniforms that year. So they had the stripes versus the Bengals on the side. So they brought the stripes in, turned the franchise upside down, turned the city on its head. There is my 4th one.
Okay. Again, I did not use the same criteria. I just went across the board in terms of Cincinnati sports seasons. So, but my 4th one was the 88 Bengals. I chose them. One, I remember them a lot better. First game I ever went to was in 81, actually. But I do remember the 88 Bengals. The Boomer Esiason and Eddie Brown connection. I just, James Brooks, Ickey Woods, all those guys. I think they were collectively a better group than the 81 Bengals. I mean, Munoz played on both of them. So, I went the 88 one Bengals.
Nice. So I have my 3rd.
Your 3rd.
I went the 88 Bengals. So I thought they were better than the 81 team. 12-4 regular season. Once again, they lost the Super Bowl to the Niners. They had Icky Mania, Boomer, MVP of the league. Sam Weish, you don't live in Cleveland, all that good stuff. So it's 88 team for me.
Okay. So now my 3rd, right?
Correct.
This is the only one that was not in my lifetime, technically. This is a 62 UC basketball. It was 61 or 62 national champions. I went with 62 because I consider it harder to win the 2nd time in a row than it is to win the 1st time. So I don't know what the stats would say or the players, whatever. Maybe 61 was better on a man-to-man basis, but I always consider it harder to win 2 in a row. Come back from winning and come back and winning a second time to gear that all up again. So I went with the 62 over the 61 Bearcats.
Gotcha. Sam?
My number 3 is last year's Cincinnati Bengals team making the AFC Championship. I think on paper, that's the best Cincinnati team of my lifetime, but season-wise, just because they didn't make it to the Super Bowl or win the conference, they get to the number 3 slot for me.
All right. Carly, your number 2 slot.
My number 2 and my number 1 are very similar.
I bet mine are too.
I bet you flipped yours though, and most people are going to agree with yours than mine.
Okay,
because I use the same reasoning I just did with the Bearcats.
Yep.
I went number 2 with the 75 Reds. I don't need to really talk too much about them. I mean, dynasty, considered top 5 baseball team, in the history of Major League Baseball. How many Hall of Famers on it? Blah blah blah. So I went the 75 Reds for number 2.
All right. My turn. I went 76.
No.
Sam's
turn.
Sorry.
So,
jumping the gun, man. Jumping the gun.
Yeah, right.
Gotta argue.
My number 2 is the 2021 UC Bearcats, in part because in order to have the season they had that year, they had to go undefeated the year before. They had to have, they don't make the college football playoff if they're 6, or I guess they only played 10 games that year. If they're 5-5 and then go undefeated the next year, they don't make the college football playoff. So because it was a 2-year type of deal, I have them in the 2 spot.
Nice. Well, I went with the 76 Reds, 102-60 World Series champs. They did sweep the Yanks in 4. They won the West by 10 games. Little, I think, people out there in YouTube land, they'll correct me, but I do believe that the 76 team, they only had, I think it was like 62 games that the grade 8 played together that year before the playoffs. I think it was like during the regular season, they only played 62 games together. So so that might be a little more impressive than not. But there we go. All right, drum roll. Number 1.
Number 1 for best season is the 21 Cincinnati Bengals making the Super Bowl. Only championship game appearance of my lifetime for a Cincinnati sports team, so it's got to be up there.
Yep, that's a good one. My number 1 pick, I went with the 75 Reds, 108-54, World Series champs over Boston. They won the West by 20 games. And I think that World Series, that's what put MLB on a grand stage, right? I mean, they played a few of the night games there and on TV, and it just, that was a classic series, and I think that brought more eyeballs to baseball because of those 2 teams.
Yeah, and everybody will agree with you on that. In terms of that order, I did the 76 Reds as the best, only because of my reasoning that I think it's harder to come back and win it a second time than it is the first time. Same players, basically. They did do better in the playoffs in 76 and 75. So
yep.
They didn't lose a game in the playoffs.
Nope.
So that's the main reason.
Any
a lot of wild card, at least 2 wild cards for me.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Any ones that didn't make your list that.
Yeah, I mean the 90 Reds were for the one that I I would have probably put them in over FC Cincinnati and heck, maybe even the Bengals. I mean, 90 Reds won the World Series.
Right.
So it's tough to beat that. But
well, and they went
I
wire to wire too.
I wanted to sprinkle in a few other teams and not have
feel
all
good.
3 of the 5 spots,
feel good.
Reds, but 90 Reds. And then for a crazy wild card, you really should put the 1869 Reds in there. They went undefeated. So you can't beat that. You cannot have a better season than the 1869 Reds. So.
What was the record? Come on.
It was like 157-0 or something
like
something
that,
crazy.
Yeah. Sam, do you have any wild cards?
Not really. I kind of had, some teams I was thinking of that were really good that, Bengals teams, those runs there, that 2015 team that went 12-4 that AJ McCarron had to start in the playoffs. Like that team on paper was a great team. And if they had, I can't believe I'm saying this, but if Andy Dalton was the quarterback, I mean, there's a chance that they make a run there. But yeah, I mean, other than that, not really. I mean, UC had some really good teams that just flamed out in the tournament. That had they actually made a run, would have been deserving of some consideration. But
yeah. When were you born?
95.
Oh, so the 2000 Bearcats would have been in there.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. The producer in my ear just said that the 69 Red Stockings 57-0. So there you go.
Okay,
there
good
you go.
job.
There you go.
Finally, I think that's the first time a producer's actually given us information that was good for the show. Like
there we go.
Accurate information.
Accurate information. So that 150 was off by 100 there. So not too bad. I had a couple of wild cards. Obviously the 90 Reds. I had the 81 Reds on my list as the 5th best. I mean, they didn't get to play in the postseason, but they did have the best record that year, the strike shortened season. There, I had a couple of UC basketball, but they didn't produce champions or get to the Final Four. Same thing was
93 team.
Well, the 93 team, yeah, that is true. The Xavier, same thing. I did have FC Cincinnati's season here last year because they did win the league. And then the only other Bengals.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I just saw. I'm watching. I have this Bengals Chiefs game on. No side, just rock Mahomes out of bounds just now. So.
There goes the flag.
That was the last time Osai was mentioned on the telecast.
Yeah.
You should have hit him harder.
He's on the milk carton.
Yeah.
And then I had Bengals. The 2005. That team was loaded. If Palmer doesn't go down. First play, that could change the trajectory of the franchise. And then the 75 Bengals actually was 11-3, lost in the divisional round. They won the division, so those were a few of the criterias, but we like winners around here, so we went with teams that have won a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I just kind of remembered UC football there. What year was that? 08, maybe? Where they got rocked by Florida in
Pike
the
Bins.
Orange Bowl. Yeah.
Yeah.
That undefeated team there. So kind of forgot about them.
Yeah, but I didn't want to put with Brian Kelly. I was like, so.
Well, I mean, they just got embarrassed by Florida.
They got embarrassed by Florida. Yes, they did. But that's all right. Florida was a pretty good team there. All right. I think that about wraps up our show today. Anything for the good of the order before we get out of here, gentlemen?
No, I think we covered it.
Yeah, we did. Next week's show, you got to tune in. We are going to have best athlete by last name initial draft. So it's probably going to be a long show. We'll probably skip most of the week that was. I probably won't have any Bengals news or Reds news. But we will talk UC because they have a couple of good games coming up, and same thing with Xavier. Then we'll go right into the trivia and then we'll do this best athlete by last name initial draft. And our producer will type up these names for us and get them out there, and you all can vote on them on Twitter and on Instagram there. So until next time, stay warm, and we'll see you next week. Everybody take care.
Yep.